Welcome to The Deep Dive. I'm Robert Simmons.
And I'm Rita Fox.
We're the hosts of Discover U Radio's discussions, and today, we're taking a deep dive into some really timely and, I think, impactful conversations.
Absolutely. We're talking about free speech, media accountability, and maybe most importantly, the real consequences that, come with words and actions.
Yeah, our mission today is really to unpack some recent events in the media world. We want to look particularly at how free will and free speech, which are fundamental, right?
Totally fundamental.
But how they can sometimes be seen as abused, and how those actions, well, they lead to consequences. It's unavoidable sometimes.
Exactly. And we'll be pulling insights from recent Fox News reports, plus statements from independent media entrepreneur Will Stenner. So get ready for some crucial insights, I think.
This isn't just about what happened, but really why it matters to all of us.
Okay, let's dive in.
All right, so let's unpack this first big piece, the recent news about ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live being pulled indefinitely by a whole bunch of affiliate stations.
Yeah, hundreds of them. And it all kicked off with comments Kimmel made about Tyler Robinson, the alleged assassin of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk.
It's such a stark example, isn't it? From our sources, you see how quickly words can turn into, well, very real consequences for public figures and their platforms.
But what's really striking here is just how immediate and intense the reaction was to Kimmel's commentary. Fox News reported that Kimmel accused what he termed the MAGA gang of trying to, mischaracterize Robinson.
Trying to paint him as anything but one of them was the phrase used, I think. Right.
And this was despite statements coming out from prosecutors, the FBI, even Utah Governor Spencer Cox.
All of whom were reaffirming Robinson's leftist ideology and radicalization, according to those reports.
Yeah, and it also came out that Robinson had a romantic relationship with a transgender partner. So the pushback against Kimmel's narrative was pretty swift and very public.
And what really turned up the volume here were the immediate results for Kimmel's show, for his platform.
Oh, absolutely. Nexstar Media Group, and you mentioned, they own hundreds of ABC affiliates across the U.S.
Huge reach.
Huge. They announced almost immediately they'd preempt Kimmel's show indefinitely, starting the very next night.
Wow.
Their broadcasting chief, Andrew Alford, was quoted saying Kimmel's comments were offensive and insensitive, especially now, given the national political discourse.
And crucially, not in the public interest. He actually said continuing to broadcast Kimmel was, quote, simply not in the public interest at the current time.
That is a direct, tangible consequence. Hits the show right where it hurts its ability to reach its audience through those affiliates.
And it didn't just stop at the local level, did it?
No, not at all. If we zoom out, this actually brought the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, into the picture.
Right. Chairman Brendan Carr issued what sounded like a direct threat against Disney, ABC's parent company.
Yeah, basically saying, address this controversy or else. It's important to remember those broadcast licenses, they aren't guaranteed.
They come with strings attached.
Exactly. They come from the FCC with a legal obligation to operate in the public interest.
So Carr's threat, while maybe not totally unprecedented, it felt significant. He called Kimmel's comments some of the sickest conduct and hinted the FCC might take additional work, action, if Disney didn't step up.
And that just throws a spotlight on the whole legal and ethical tightrope of free speech when you have a massive public platform.
Especially when a government body starts suggesting it could get involved beyond just, slapping wrists.
It really highlights how content perceived as divisive, not just indecent, can lead to these high-stakes situations for broadcasters.
And Kimmel, during all this, he also went after Vice President J.D. Vance, didn't he?
He did. Criticized Vance for, I think the quote was, pointing his little mascara-stained finger directly at the left for political lunatics.
And dismissed Vance's claims as utterly unfounded or something similar.
Yeah, which just underscores the deep polarization we're seeing. Media figures often end up right in the thick of it.
And sometimes, as we're seeing here, with pretty significant repercussions if their comments are seen as like fanning the flames.
It really does show how comments from public figures can easily be perceived that way, even if they feel they're just exercising free speech.
The issue becomes not just what you say, but how it lands, the perceived impact.
Right. And it begs that question, how much responsibility does a public figure have for how their words are interpreted, especially when things are so heated politically?
It's a fascinating tension, isn't it? We value free expression. Absolutely.
Of course.
But there's also an expectation maybe of a certain level of, decorum, or maybe responsibility from those with huge platforms.
And the consequences, as we saw with Nexstar and the FCC's shadow looming, they can be incredibly swift.
Definitely. Which brings us perfectly to another key voice in this whole discussion, Will Stenner.
Ah, yes, the founder of Discover You Radio and host of the Discussions podcast. He weighed in quite strongly.
He did, talking about broader media accountability and what he specifically called an abuse of free speech.
He really didn't mince words. He stated, quite bluntly, it's great to see Jimmy Kimmel face the consequence of his abuse of free speech.
Wow.
And he directly linked Kimmel's actions to causing, quote, a huge separation in humanity, causing discord.
That's a powerful take.
Yeah.
It speaks directly to our theme today, how that fundamental right, free speech, can be seen as abused.
And how that perception leads to real-world repercussions, both societal and personal. For Stenner, it seems there's a clear line
between using your right and actually causing harm,
and
when that line's crossed,
consequences should follow. That's his view.
It's a strong stance, focusing on accountability, but it also, opens up that wider debate again.
Definitely, because while Stenner's view probably resonates with a lot of people who feel media figures have become too divisive,
others would argue that even offensive or provocative speech is still protected speech.
Exactly, and that calls for cancellation. Well, they can be seen as a form of speech suppression themselves. It's a really fine line we're navigating.
It absolutely is. And Stenner didn't just focus on Kimmel.
No, he also took aim at NBC's Jimmy Fallon, calling him merely a puppet that also needs to be canceled.
Okay.
But he saved some particularly sharp criticism for TMZ, which got caught up in a different kind of controversy around the same tragic event.
Ah, the TMZ incident. Another example of how fast public perception can shift, and how sometimes an explanation just doesn't cut it.
Right. During their live stream covering Charlie Kirk's assassination, there was laughter heard in the background.
Which sounds terrible out of context.
Absolutely. TMZ issued an apology. They clarified it was from a totally unrelated conversation happening off camera.
But Stenner wasn't buying it.
Not at all. He called them liars who should be pulled off the air for what he termed their blatant lies.
It's fascinating how quickly that reputational damage happened, and the calls for accountability, even with an explanation.
It really underscores the intense scrutiny media outlets are under now, especially around sensitive, tragic news.
The public expectation for empathy, for accuracy, seems higher than ever.
And any perceived misstep, even an accidental one, can lead to these severe calls for consequences. Trust can evaporate instantly.
It also makes you think about the immediacy of digital media, like live streams.
Oh, for sure. Those raw, unfiltered moments, even the unintended ones.
They get amplified and scrutinized instantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different world than traditional edited broadcasts. A whole new level of accountability, maybe.
It really is. And all this ties into Stenner's broader critique, his call for essentially industry reform.
Right. He said, we need to give these platforms to people who are funny, moral, and don't divide people.
Connecting this to the bigger picture, Stenner's comments tap into what seems like a growing feeling.
That maybe traditional media figures, especially in late night, are a bit out of sync with what some audiences want or expect now.
Possibly. We are seeing major shifts in late-night TV. Jimmy Kimmel Live, for instance, saw an 11% drop in viewers in September 2025.
Down to just over 1 million viewers, which is quite a dip.
It is, and you add that to past criticisms like former President Trump calling Kimmel and Fallon no talent and saying they're destroying what used to be great television.
It points to a real shift in audience expectations, maybe, and challenges for traditional media.
It seems less about just what's being said and more about who's saying it, how it's said, and how it connects or doesn't with a really diverse and fragmented audience.
Which circles back to that question. What responsibility do media figures have? Is it just to entertain? Or is their responsibility to foster unity, not division?
Especially when, as we discussed, their platforms operate under licenses granted in the public interest.
A term that itself seems constantly up for debate and redefinition.
Exactly. It feels like there's a collective reevaluation happening about what public interest actually means for mass media today and whether the current programming always meets that standard.
So what does all this boil down to for you, the listener? We've seen clearly how exercising free speech, a fundamental liberty, isn't free from cost.
Not at all. From networks pulling shows, hundreds of affiliates,
to direct threats from the FCC and strong accusations of abuse from independent voices like Stenner.
The consequences for public figures and the platforms carrying them can be incredibly swift and severe.
It's a potent reminder, isn't it? Freedom of speech comes packaged with significant responsibility.
especially for those in the public eye. They seem to be held to a really high standard for how their words affect the broader conversation.
Our words definitely have ripples. And sometimes those ripples become waves of undeniable consequence for people and for institutions.
These stories we've looked at today really highlight that delicate balance, that constant negotiation.
Between freedom of expression on one side
And the actual impact it has on public discourse, on trust, on unity on the other.
the actions by broadcasters, by regulators, by independent critics, they all underscore this point. Speech might be free.
But the aftermath, the fallout from our words, our choices, that can reshape careers, public trust, even the entire media landscape. It's a living negotiation playing out constantly.
Indeed. So we'll leave you with this maybe provocative thought to chew on. In this increasingly polarized world we live in,
Where does the responsibility for constructive dialogue actually lie? Is it solely with the speaker?
or does the platform bear responsibility? Or maybe even us, the listener.
How do we as individuals navigate this media landscape? The line between provocative commentary and genuinely harmful speech seems so blurry sometimes.
And what responsibility do we hold in shaping that landscape through what we watch, what we share, what we demand?
Lots to think about there. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
I'm Robert Simmons.
And I'm Rita Fox.
From Discover U Radio's Discussions. We'll catch you next time.